In this session, this is mainly about the things we're working on right now, and in particular, ways of supporting the NCD journey. Most of you are in some capacity supporting people in the NCD process to differing levels, and we are very much having a focus at the moment and in the next period of time of looking at how we can significantly improve the support in the NCD world. I'm often asked, so what's the minimum factor of NCD? And it's funny because people often don't even wait for me to answer it, and they suggest it. Oh, is it maybe effective structures? It's like, well, I guess that's your opinion then. And to some degree, I have felt that for a long time, that our effective structures, it's all been maybe a little bit too loose and open and not quite guided enough. And so we're putting things in place not to control anything, but really, I have a little motto for this phase of what we're in, and that's simply connect and simplify. So how can we simplify the processes, simplify the results, simplify the tools, and how can we connect this enormous number of people around the world who have a heart for NCD? Bill did some research quite some years ago, a sort of research on people who've used NCD, trying to get feedback in different directions, and it'll never leave me. One of the most remarkable things that came out of that was he went and interviewed people who were involved in NCD but had lapsed and hadn't used the survey or anything for years, long ago. And one of the questions was, would you recommend NCD to others? These are people not currently using it. And overwhelmingly, oh yes, absolutely. Now, you can't quite understand that, but you have to unpack it in a way and say, well, it's gone deep in the hearts of people, but something in the implementation, or in some cases, people have moved roles. They maybe had a role as a pastor or a denominational executive. Now they're in a different role. They still have a deep heart for NCD, but it's like, well, what can I do with it now? And so we want to make sure we don't lose those people. So wherever you are, that you can be engaged in that. So we know that there are just enormous numbers of people, and even conversations I've had here, I've known of people, I've known names, but then hearing what's going on, it's exciting and embarrassing and everything all at the same time, because the thought of how much we're not stewarding the time, treasure and talent of the NCD community anywhere near well enough. So that's driving very much this push to how do we support the community. And part of that is because the overall vision of NCD, it's never really been less than this, but we need to express it more clearly. So as Chettle referred to, we have this picture here. And I must confess, it's a little bit funny that working on this 3 C's, the 3 C's of NCD, natural church development, natural character development, and natural community development, initially working on this diagram was a little bit more practical, just to try to help people understand the pieces. And then in talking with Chettle, he got very excited about it, and he was talking about missional connections, and oh, that's great. And he's already put it in a book. So it made me think, okay, well, this is good. We need to really press into this much more. And so, of course, we're still looking at this building on the foundational rock, but then in all of society and church and character, these dimensions exist. And it's not that NCD was about church development and is now moving into character development. I actually mentioned that NCD was involved in character development before church development. The first NCD tools were discipleship, character tools. They weren't the church survey, just most people know about the church survey. But it's not that we're moving into character development or community development, because everything we're about is built on these principles. So that's happening already and has always been happening. We're just trying to make sure we make it very clear that these are essential parts of what we're involved in, and that we're intending to resource people in those places when they're involved with those things. So we're obviously most familiar probably with the church development, and so we're looking at establishing healthy churches, and we could call this part the gathering component of the overall process of natural development, or as Henrik just told me, he would prefer the kingdom coming on earth as it is in heaven, and that's exactly what should be at the center of this. Now, healthy churches, a healthy church nurtures Christ-like character. But it's not automatic. I mentioned earlier that the problem is churches start the church survey process, and after 4 years, their progress starts to roll off. When we dug into the background of that, what we could see quite clearly was that most progress in the early stages is made by organising things better. Let's grease the wheels. Let's just, it's not a welcoming church. Let's remove that guy that punches the visitors, and let's do just some really practical things to try to make the machine run a bit better. And most churches get some good progress from that. But as soon as it reaches a point where you have to grow your people, those items were kind of tended to be left behind, and there was a struggle there. So you can develop the healthy church part, but in the overall process of things, to keep developing the healthy church, it depends upon the other sections coming into the picture as well. And so once we establish healthy church and we have our activities and practices, we have to think, what is this serving? Because it's a little bit more like a trellis or a stake. We've established this gathering. Now, what does it do? How do we make sure that we remember its entire purpose for existence is the formation of people into Christ-like character in whatever ways that takes place? So that's the nurturing and the transition or the part of this overall cycle that we have to bring people into. Otherwise, we'll continue to see this pattern where they don't make further progress. They get stuck in a boxed picture of what church development is, and they don't expand that to a character development. Now, as we move then from Christ-like character upwards, this Christ-like character, or this forming Christ-like character through salt and light, expresses itself as renewed community. Now, this is very important because in many churches, there is a tendency, great, we've got healthy church life, and we need to go out and reach the world. We've got our church, now let's go out and try to save the world. And they bypass the forming part. And so the fruit of it is very, very limited. But when we understand that character formation is essentially becoming saltier and becoming brighter, it just means as you go out into the community, you're having more effect automatically. Because a lot of people have said, there's been things like the incarnational church and elements saying we need to get our people out in the community. But the reality is most people in most churches spend most of their time around non-Christians or people further outside there. That's never been the problem, which is in part why some of this sort of incarnational thing, you can't disagree with it, but it hasn't had a particularly large impact because it was never really the problem in the first place. If your people are not salt and bright, if they're dull and tasteless, then they're not going to be very convincing. It's as simple as that. Whereas if you have people growing in salt and light, and then they just automatically move around in their community, neighbouring with people and being part of them, that is going to be having an effect on people. So it becomes a very natural kind of missional cycle as long as you don't bypass that section. And then, so this develops this renewed community, which is very simple neighbouring. Neighbouring in and of itself would be of no use if you're not bright and salty. But if you are bright and salty, it's just all by itself going to be having an impact on people. And then, interestingly for me, this last little component is the renewed community gives rise to healthy church. Now, that's a subtle difference to the idea of go out to the community and then get people to come back to the church. No problem if that's the case. But the interesting thing is that if that salt and light starts having an effect in community in different places, those people may come back to the same church, but it may simply give rise to new expressions of church life. And this wildly simplifies ideas of church planting. Church planting, sure, it's a good thing, but most versions of it are very complicated and expensive and, when's our launch date and all sorts of things like that. Whereas if we move into this cycle, the possibility that new expressions of church, still with maybe a close connection to the mother church or whatever else start to emerge, but it's dependent on every previous stage. So this is the kind of grand vision of what we're involved in, not because we're choosing to go into it, but the principles simply apply there anyway. We're just wanting to make it more explicit now that we're involved in these things. So in broad terms, you can say we've got the church survey here, we've got the things like the e-tests as a support tool there, and then in renewed community, we've got lots of ideas planned, but in the simplest sense right now, we have things like the group profiles connected to the e-tests. So we've got plenty of people with their family or their little group of friends or their sporting club who started to play with these things. And they just have these conversations as a neighbouring thing to do. And you could say, is that an evangelist activity? Well, by the definition I talked about before, yes, of course it is. It's evangelized discipleship, eye to eye, happening out in the world in the community. Now, those people might then want to gather with others because they're feeling greater commonality. Oh, we're on the same road. Yeah, I'm open to going along to your church, or maybe gathering together more regularly in some other format because we're coming into alignment of people on the journey to life. So this allows us to build, as I said yesterday, all kinds of houses of God of all different shapes and sizes, and where 2 or 3 will gather, or where 200 or 300 gather, and wherever they gather, we're really not that concerned about it. But the possibilities are endless, and there's so much beautiful, colourful diversity that can emerge from that. All right, so in the supporting the NCD world thing, here is some of the parts that we are beginning to move into, which will probably affect all of you in one way or another, and maybe for some of you in multiple different ways. Now, if you happen to be, so we have 3 main team groups that we're establishing. One is we've got national teams. We've kind of already got those in terms of national partnerships, but in many cases, we have maybe just 1 person or 2 people. So what we're saying is we really need to expand that base, because tragically we've had lots of NCD ministries that have fallen over or disappeared because someone got busy or sick, and tragically in some cases they died. Bert Olbrich trained a partner, young, fantastic guy in Tanzania, and he was just about to start the partnership, and he went on a mission trip and died on the mission trip, which is awful. But the thing is, we need to broaden the base, a little bit like John was talking about in the NCD process itself. Within the church, you need more people on board, and that's what we need to have in the team. So we're looking to expand that. Then we've got denominational teams we're looking to introduce as well, and we're looking at quality characteristic teams around the globe. Now, we're not inventing these things because they already exist. We're just wanting to make them much clearer, get a better rhythm to them, help people know how to be a part of them, connect people with each other around the world. So we look at national teams. These are groups that are national and interdenominational. That's typically what our national partnerships look like. What we're looking to establish, and for some of you who are partners are saying, oh, I didn't hear about this. That's right, because I haven't spoken to you yet, but here's the vision, and we'll talk more later. So at the leadership level, what we want to establish is a mission leader and a campfire host. You can think of these a little bit like the mission leader determines the direction. The campfire host, which we'll expand on in a moment, is the gatherer that makes sure no one's getting lost, the 99 and the 1, bringing people together. So we've got kind of, there's the direction, and let's keep everyone together along the way. So we're wanting to have at least that in place within each partnership. Further to that, we want to see develop over time within each nation a team of what we call 8+ quality characteristic specialists. We touched on this morning with the panel and where the people's hearts beat faster, and the fact that no one, Christian and I, can't hold all the pieces of NCD in our heads at the same time, and no one should have to do that. We need to see more diverse teams develop where we have people who just move with their energy and become specialists in certain areas and are able to be available to develop, coaching communities according to that quality characteristic, or be on hand as a kind of consultant in that area who knows the tools, knows the processes, and each of these things. Again, these are all things to be grown over time, to gradually just look for those people. Who has the energy? Who can we bring into this team to expand it? And then part of what we want to see within the teams is this national campfire community. And I need to pay enormous tribute to Mariana, who basically gave birth to this whole thing. I went to her first monthly thing and then a couple after and thought, this is just fantastic. So simple and lightweight. They talked about it before. Just this monthly gathering, focus on networking, connecting, having discussion, little tiny micro presentation, not too heavy on the content, but just creating community and rhythm within the NCD world. So I'm so grateful to Mariana for that, and I sort of half hijacked it. With her permission, we've talked about it, and what emerged is this NCD Campfire idea, because it fits so beautifully to the 3-colour compass. When you have the different colours and the different people in the room, and you have the fire of God in the middle, and then you picture the classically campfires right through history. You move from the darkness, where the dangerous animals are, the church members and stuff. You move away from the dangerous animals and you see the light, and maybe I can have some shelter, I can warm myself, I can find something to eat, and I can sit in a circle, not in a hierarchy, but I can sit in a circle eye to eye with other people, and I can just spend a moment in time being away from the dangers of ministry life. Again, it's essentially what Mariana's been doing, but 1 hour monthly gatherings where you no longer have to feel alone, lost, or afraid. Now that might sound a bit dramatic, but it actually corresponds directly with the wholeness categories. You don't have to feel alone because you've got embracing relationships. You don't have to feel lost because you're being helped to have purposeful contribution and to be able to focus your ministry. You don't have to feel afraid because you're being instilled with unshakable confidence. You're hearing what others are doing and you're becoming braver to take the steps that you need to do. So that's what we're hoping to develop there. And further that, with the national teams, we're hoping for, national teams are responsible for resourcing local churches and denominations and addressing the culture of their nation through the principles of NCD. So we just want them to completely reform their national government, social services, and eradicate every problem that exists in the country. Next. Now, that may sound dramatic too, but I have to say the logical conclusion of NCD principles has always been that. It's never been anything other than that. We haven't necessarily talked about it, but as we develop these teams, I want to be leaning on the teams a bit more and saying, what in the news feed of your country is related to empowering leadership? What's related to lack of loving relationships? What do these things look like? Not that we're creating some political activism group or some party political thing, but we're saying, we're recognizing that that rock level is the answer. And you can categorize the news of the day according to the quality characteristics. Your country has a minimum factor. Your city has a minimum factor. These things are realities that we need to start in one way or another, looking at and speaking into, but at the very least, working with many people so you're just naturally, organically changing the health and culture and seeing the kingdom come in your country. Right. Good luck with that. Denominational teams. Now, this is a really interesting area and a very exciting development for me. So denominational teams, different to the national, which are national and interdenominational, denominational teams are denominational and international, because many denominations have groups across multiple different countries. And what we've struggled from in the NCD world is many times just not having contacts in certain countries. And then I've had a few conversations, even the last couple of days, oh yeah, we've got people in that place, or we've got people in that country. And just for the want of connecting those communications, suddenly you've got people. So Nagaraj here is on me every time we meet about, Adam, are they going yet? Are they going yet? Because I want to know who all the denominational contacts are in India, so I can start talking with them and begin ministering together. But there's another dynamic in the background, and again, we're all friends here, so I can speak publicly and hi video. But over 30 years of observation of it, there are I don't have great confidence that there's any movement on the planet, any denomination older than 30 years of age, which is nearly all of them, whereby the top level of leadership is able to lead the change necessary to see that movement shift. And that's not an attack on the people, that's a systemic issue that means the people who are typically elevated into those positions are elevated in part by necessity to preserve much of what is there. And as much as they may want to bring about some degree of change, the limitations are enormous and the timeframes are incredibly short. So what do you do about that? And to some degree, NCD's approach has always been, oh, well, that's their own, or Christians' favourite phrase, they're all old and ugly enough to do that themselves. But at a certain point you say, well, I don't know that that's completely working, so what can we do? If you take this picture, any given denomination is like a plant, in NCD terms, and most of those that have a bit of age to them, the plant has some good things, and it's also got some parts about it that aren't great, and in many cases it is getting a little bit worse over time. And then there's a stake next to it, which is the structure. And then the structure there is helping a bit, but is also leaning on the plant a bit. So it's not the greatest relationship that's in place. These denominational teams, what I'm hoping for them to be is a place where we go around the world and we hand-pick people that we know are just great NCD practitioners. They love their denomination. They're not throwing rocks at it. They love their people. They love their denomination. They get NCD. They want to make these things work. But they get very much caught up in all the requirements. We want to give them a place, like another stake, a very lightweight stake that comes in the other side of the plant that can be a support to help the plant and the structure to start to shape up further. Because the requirements of these groups are very, very lightweight. So there's none of the politics, none of the other things in there. We're just saying, we just singularly want you to focus on the maximum factor, the minimum factor, and bring people in that conversation and then speak life into your movement there. Now, we happen to know many of those people. The people in the denominations often don't know who those people are. So we have a chance to bring that in. And interestingly, some have said, some of the potential leaders I've spoken to have said it's quite handy that NCD International would be the one appointing them, ordaining them to this position, because if anyone says, well, within the movement, why are you in that role? So, well, because NCD International has asked me to lead this because they already have a responsibility to support that denomination, and they're just trying to form a team who can be the dream team to try to make that happen. And so that then gives them a sense of space and freedom to move into that. So again, exactly the same picture in each case. We're looking for a mission leader and a campfire host. So it's wonderful to have Henrik in the room. Henrik's sitting here hearing what his job description is for the first time, but I've spoken to Henrik about being the mission leader. No, we have had conversations. The mission leader for the Salvation Army team, for example. Gillian starts on Friday. Yes, okay, Friday's the first. Lots of news for Henrik today. Gillian over here, I've asked her about being the campfire host for the Adventist campfire. And so we have 12 different denominations we've identified that are already significantly involved in NCD across multiple different countries. There'll be more coming, but at the moment, multiple different countries. And the first 4, so the approach is just, do we see leaders rising up for this? We're not just, ticking boxes. We're saying, who's emerging? What can we do about this thing? So the first 4, we have the Salvation Army, Seventh-day Adventists, the Brethren Church, and Foursquare churches. So there's, we're continuing to look and open to all of these areas, but the initial discussions are just so exciting to hear the contacts they have and the vision that's already emerging of, oh, yes, this could happen, that could happen. So there's a sense of freedom of, wow, let's really knock this out of the park. And of course, they're also then looking for team members to be part of that who also love the movement, really get NCD, and they can play a support role, speak into it, into the team itself, and can also be drawing upon the insights and the celebration of the stories from the ground and shaping all of that up. And then we have Denominational Campfire community, exactly the same kind of community, once a month, 1 hour, they get together, but in this case have a very specific focus on the cultural factors relating to that denomination. And as I said, celebrating and solving the culture of the denomination and seeking out, I need to change celebrating so it has an S to start so it all fits together. Culture of the denomination and seeking out those who could contribute to that mission. So that's the singular focus. That's what you work on. And we've been producing a new type of, analysis of the global denominational data to be able to pull that together, and that's essentially the homework. Here's your handbook, celebrate this, solve this, and then bring other people on board to, address what is here, and then, speak that life into your denomination. Then across to quality characteristic teams. Again, these are natural categories within the overall NCD world and have always been. So they're international and interdenominational. In this case, again, simply looking for a mission leader and a campfire host. So the pattern is the same there, nice and simple. And looking for the team members. And in this case, walking alongside others, wrestling with a specific quality characteristic in their character, church, or community. So in this room, we've got people like John doing work on inspiring worship. Gillian over here is right into gift-based ministry. Chettle's done a whole bunch of work around empowering leadership. We've got people already that are moving in those spaces. We've got people, churches right around the world, working on a specific minimum factor. We've got people who've taken a particular e-test and are engaged in that quality characteristic for that e-test. So we already have lots of people who have a strong interest in making progress and doing things in those areas. How can we pull them together and have a simple conversation? So if anyone's a real NCD junkie and just loves it all, they could potentially be in 3 campfire gatherings a month because I'm a US Salvation Army inspiring worship person. They're the things that matter most to me. So that's the kind of conversation that I most need to be in. So that's part of what we're wanting to have take place there. Now, underpinning all of this is what we call the NCD Underground, and this is essentially for the leaders of each of those different teams, along with any team members that they bring into the picture, and it's a meeting place for national, denominational, and quality characteristic team members to collaborate. So it's just an online type platform and a means of connecting those people because, again, we want to have Nagaraj being able to drop over to the Salvation Army thing and say, hey, Henrik, can you point me towards the contacts that might be connected with the Salvation Army there? And then someone else going another direction and being able to connect with each other and simply being kept up to date and also feeding into, new tools and things or revisions of all that kind of stuff. So we've never had these sort of communal spaces before, so it's hopefully going to be a huge strengthening of the leadership base. All right, NCD is a process. Who's ever told this to a church? NCD is not a program, it's a process. Yes, that's all absolutely true. Okay, well, so let's look at what the typical NCD process actually looks like on the average church. So here's the year. Just come back from Christmas. Oh, we decided to do a survey. There's a little bit of energy around NCD because we remembered how to spell it. And then a little bit later, there's more energy because we're actually taking the survey. There's something really going on there. A little bit later on, wow, the survey results revealed an action plan worked on. So there's a high energy moment where there's a celebration or there's crying or there's fights or goodness knows what, but it's really NCD's right in our face. And then a little while later, oh yes, that's right, we've got a follow-up meeting. We better talk about that and see where we're going to. And then a little bit later, the urgent overtakes the important, and it's gradually drifting away. On your half of the world, you have your summer holidays. Good for you. And then further on, we're back from summer holidays. We did a survey a little while ago. Does anyone remember what it was? Has everyone got a copy of the results? It's somewhere here. And then after that, it's going out towards Christmas again. And we remember Jesus came to bring life in all its fullness, but we've actually forgot what that means right now. So that's a pretty bumpy rhythm. That's kind of what it looks like in most cases. There's not much rhythm for life there. And the problem with minimum factors is they're the thing we least like. We don't want to spend money on. We don't enjoy it. There's nothing good about it. So it's the easiest thing to drift off the table and to forget about. So as much as we've talked about the process, and in some places some great coaching processes have been put in place to keep that consistency, in the most part, NCD hasn't been experienced as a process, probably much closer to a program or event, to be fair. And so, that's a real issue that we need to be able to solve. Even if you zoom in on the weekly and daily rhythms sort of level, if that's the waking hours of the week, not for Bill, it would be much longer. The waking hours in a week and typical time in church activities. We've referred to this before. So of all those waking hours, most people are only in church activities for a remarkably small time. So if you're wanting to bring about transformation in those people's lives, you've got a very small window to do that in most cases. And a lot of the rest of life diluting and washing away the good things you're trying to do. So a big question is, how can we walk more consistently with our people, helping them stay on the journey to life? All right. I feel like Steve Jobs. NCD in your pocket. How do we create, in the most ideal world, we would have disciples and disciple makers walking in yokes alongside each other consistently, asking the right questions, prompting each other with growth and being there all the time. Well, if we had to do that, NCD wouldn't exist. We could have a bonfire and burn all the books. It wouldn't matter anymore. So we're not there. So what can we help do and put in place that can continue this rhythm in some way? And one of the valuable things in today's world, or can be valuable, is the prospect of getting tiny prompts on a regular basis that would be of a useful kind, that would keep you focused in some way. Because most times NCD falls over, it's just that it's forgotten. It's nothing other than that. If it's remembered, then suddenly you make some further progress. So how can we help prompt people? So this, over a period of time, and much development from our tiny team. We have one web developer and one designer, my dear friends over multiple decades who have suffered many things to deliver the technical things in the NCD world, when we should probably have 20 developers, but one day, you never know. The Journey to Life app, now this is the big reveal, except that it's the tiniest first step imaginable. Imagine a tiny foal that's just been born and it can barely stand. That's what I'd love to show you today. So, just to give you a little bit of a hint of where we're going. All right, that's my chaotic home screen. The Journey to Life app. Oh, it flashed up very quick, and I'm not even on the right page. All right, so we have exactly as you've seen, but in a much friendlier form, swipeable form, the wholeness test itself, which is not clicking through. I'm happy. This happened to Steve Jobs once, so I'm perfectly happy with that. All right. So if you just imagine that was swiping, and you've taken the test, you've seen that anyway. You have the results coming through, but then one of the parts that is one of the most exciting developments around this is the capacity to take people's results in a very specific level and to produce for them a daily devotional completely tailored to their results. So doing a cluster analysis of the exact data in the background, totally unique for that person, drawing upon Scripture, drawing upon the voice of Jesus, all sorts of things to be able to provide a day-by-day journey that's completely customized. I was at a conference recently with the Australian head of the Bible app, and you might know some months ago they passed 1 billion downloads, this unbelievable level of downloads, and I got to talk with him and I said, so what, that's very exciting for you guys. Where are you guys at? Like, what's the biggest struggle? And he said, oh, it's fantastic. We've got so many people reading the Bible. He said, we've got no idea if any of them are growing. It's like, oh, that's interesting. And I mentioned to him what we're working on, and his eyes nearly fell out of his head, which was kind of nice to say, imagine being able to give completely customized Bible devotionals and pathways for people based on exactly where they are at on their journey to life. So that was exciting, and hopefully they might send some of their bazillions of dollars our way one day. You never know. And so we come into, where are we here? Yeah, strength that stands beside you. This was quite useful coming to the conference for me. So each day then has a theme within the devotional. It is written, 2 are better than 1 because they have a good reward for their toil, for if they fail, one will lift the other. But woe to one who is alone and falls and does not have another to help. And many people would have read that. But I'm reading that as a person who personally needs to hear that precisely because of what I have shared within my results. Then in each case, in other words, shared work has goodness in it, shared weakness does too. Life is kinder when someone is there to lift you when you cannot get up as easily on your own. And Jesus' voice in this. Again, and what we've built in is, what would you love to have Jesus call you? What name? What name would you like? And as an Australian, I actually like mate. If Jesus said, hey, mate, I'd actually enjoy that. So these lines are practical, almost plain spoken. Work goes better together. Falls are easier together. The passage does not romanticize human closeness. It simply tells the truth about how often people need each other. There is a kind of exhaustion that comes from always being the one who keeps going, keeps managing, keeps finding a way through. The Scripture does not scold that weariness. It just opens a window and says there is another way to stand. Mate, what if being accompanied is not a sign that something has gone wrong, but one of the ordinary gifts meant to meet you on the road? This is what I was reading the first morning that I woke up here, moving into a conference where, despite doing this sort of thing many years, I sense anxiety about things. So it's just a bit of a healing balm for me. Then step into this today. Ask someone to join you in one task today, even a small one. Let it be something ordinary so your body can learn that shared effort does not need to be dramatic to be real. So this is just a discipline for every day, specifically targeted exactly where you are at on your journey. And then a suggestion for a prayer. Jesus, thank you for the plain mercy of people beside me. When I'm tempted to go alone, turn me gently toward company and let shared strength feel safe. And then if I've finished that day, I can mark that off. And then another one will come the next day. In the background, we've actually built in to the prompts of this, the entire empowering leadership wings. So it's Jesus walking with you in accordance with all the aspects like vision and experimentation and capacity and strategy, and walking you through that journey from different angles as you're growing. So I and my family and some various friends have been going through the prototype versions of this at a personal level for quite some period of time now. It's been a remarkable experience with a lot of tears and people sending me texts at night going, I just read my devotional for today and it's exactly what I had to hear. And it's like, good, I'm glad. This is there's so much more to come. I mean, eventually the whole NCD platform sort of moves into this space. But this was what we needed to put together for, proof of concept and to begin addressing this rhythm issue, this disciple issue. And the other part is you can choose the path as you go into this. Do I want to have the delight path or the deepening path? So am I struggling? Is my fixed leg wobbly? I'd like the delight path. That would be helpful. I just need to be strengthened here. Or I'm going pretty well. Okay, I want to have the deepening path. I want to be pressed into here so that I actually grow and move forward. So each week the person can choose which path that they're taking and which leg they're focusing on their discipleship journey. Okay, so just a tiny bit more about where that is going. All right, so the kind of development picture is that we end up with the free wholeness test and other e-tests by subscription. So again, that will be free, but we want to shift the other e-tests away from tokens and instead have a subscription approach, because we're building lots of other tools like the daily discipleship things that people will probably want to have continuously. And if you have a subscription, you don't have to get a token for this test or that. You just take whichever test you want whenever you want to do that and have the full functionality. And people have sort of asked us for that for some time, and so we want to move in that direction. As I say, daily custom devotionals, but not just in the personal level. The other thing we've been piloting around this, well, in various levels, Nagaraj has a son getting married soon, and I have a daughter getting married soon, not to each other, but he's always pushing me. And he said, Adam, do you have a daily devotional for the love test yet? He goes, my son's getting married, and they've taken the love test. Hurry up, you need to, okay. Well, I have a daughter as well, and so we put together a love devotional where two people, and they don't have to be a couple, it could be just best friends, it could be dating. I've done one for my son and his girlfriend, or engaged, or married, or even separated, but still trying to work something out, and be able to take the love test, combine the results, and then walk through that journey. And the first week is, what love do you bring together when you are together? What's that strength? How can we affirm the love that you have and that radiates out from your relationship? Second week looks at one of the people and has a focus on them, the strengths they have, the growth areas, so the couple can discuss that together. Then it switches to the other person, and the final week is what would it look like if you both grew in love? What would it change for your own relationship and the impact on the rest of the world around you? So we have ones like that. But then in addition, we've also done some piloting of a 28-day devotional for local churches for their church survey. So you've got the results, you've looked through all that. Now, whoever would like to join up can join together on a daily devotional specifically tailored to exactly the church survey results, that takes you through a journey of affirming the strengths of the church and then just gently going through the minimum factor areas, looking at scripture verses, looking at daily disciplines, so you can begin practicing the things you need to do to improve your minimum factor. And again, some of the feedback on that has been just absolutely remarkable, which is very exciting. So it's, in some cases it's like, oh, we're not really sure what these results are about, and then it's like sackcloth and ashes and repenting by the end. We need to address this because it even goes through the process of what does this look like for our leadership, what does it look like for our congregation, and what does this look like for the people who are not yet part of our church, and walks through that journey. Personalised disciple-making prompts. So this is where you can say, well, I'm setting out on this journey and I'd love my friend, John and Bill and someone else to track with me. And so then once a week, they'll get a little prompt saying, hey, when you meet up with Adam, ask him one of these 3 questions. You may not know why, but the questions are exactly formed around where Adam is at that point in time to open a conversation. So even if you're not experienced in discipleship, just pick a question and ask your friend and then sit there and listen. Like, you don't have to do much else, because it's an important question for where they're at on their journey. And then the Your Journey part, which is just simply directing you through the tests or processes based upon your own results, and maybe which test is most helpful next. Wholeness gatherings, this is super cool, I can't wait for this, but what we're shaping up is, you imagine that this conference, if you know what this means, has a geo-fence around it. You might have had it sometimes. You walk into a place that says, oh, do you want to check in at the Norway NCD conference? Yeah, sure, I check in there. And while I'm there, I'm part of the data pool, and if I opt in, I can be with different people and I can have conversations with whoever that are life-giving disciple, type conversations, because we're all part of the same place. And then if it happened to be a local church or a cafe or a family home, you can even be then watching the nature of the health or wholeness of that place over time as people are connected. And then lastly, just QR code sharing. Imagine you're sitting with a friend and, it'd be great to take the wholeness test. Cool, okay, just scan my phone, click the button, off we go. And also Friend Finder, which is finding people, I'd like people that I'm connected with who have the gift of hospitality. Maybe I'm someone operating in the church and I run the gift ministry and I've connected with various people. Or people who are stronger in patience than I am from the love test. Or in fact, people who are coaches or have experience with one of the tools of NCD, and I might like to be able to connect with those people. So these are all part of the pathway. And so lastly, I just would invite you, if you would like, to go on the mailing list. So this is Alpha. This is literally the only, if you steal my phone, you have the one copy of the entire thing on the planet. But if you'd like to be notified when we go to the beta phase to try it out, and would give you some requests of homework, that you would give feedback to us on certain things and shape all that through. If you visit that link, you can just put your email address in and we can let you know when that part comes up. So that's all I have for there. Any thoughts or questions before we pull up stumps, as we say in cricket? The app itself will be free, and then if you then choose later to get subscriptions so that you have the other e-tests and things, then there'll be we're thinking at least a monthly charge, or you can get it for a year. And you can share time to other people as well. So if you want to be generous, you can get a year subscription and then just pass it to another person you'd like to support their growth journey.
Can we sign up for the 28 days of discipline now?
So the daily, once the beta comes live, and once you then grab the app, it'll be Apple or Android, then you can just take the test, press the button, and you get your first 7 days of the devotional. And then each week you just decide which track would I like to go, and then you can have another 7 days.
So, very cool. I want to test it. When I saw that Jesus Speaks part, how will the app, I'm sure there will be steps, and how will the app encourage people to take part in the real, not just through the technology, but obviously by speaking to others, but I'm thinking especially with the Jesus Speaking part. I understand it's based on data, very reliable, but so it doesn't become a substitute. That's what I'm trying to say. Like the phone doesn't become the main connection.
Yeah, it's a very legitimate concern, and to some degree it's a concern that already exists. So in some churches, the phone app is substituted by the pastor's message every week, and that's my total Bible intake because someone is telling me what that happens to be. So in one way, it's an existing challenge. What we'd like to, again, in further developing the devotionals, we've done some testing with it, that once a week there's even a deeper study, behind the word, going even into word study and context and history, something particularly valuable that week that might speak to where you are at exactly. And then certainly encouraging people to go deeper and do their own Bible reading. It's difficult to know how to encourage that further, but hopefully people will be intrigued enough and can move forward. It's a little bit difficult because you come across copyright challenges if you want to link to other areas, but there's a lot of Bible translation, a huge amount of Bible translation, AI research happening right now, in part because if you take something like John 3:16, there are, I believe, more than 300 ways in English you could translate John 3:16 that are genuine translations, not paraphrases, but actually genuine translations. And many of them would be almost identical, but they wouldn't be identical to each person. They would mean something slightly different. And so there's a huge field of saying, what does it look like to bring Bible translations in line with the, the it or at or whichever words would actually speak most to that person. So we're continuing to try to look into that anyway.
Hi, Adam. I haven't really got any questions. All I wanted to do really was just affirm you and those guys that you're working with in everything you're doing. For me, it sounds very creative. You're pushing boundaries. And I think that sounds, because you're pushing boundaries and being creative and very much about the moment, that feels to me very healthy. So I want to affirm you and thank you. And the guys you work for, all that you're doing, right? You're not standing still, you're pushing, pushing, pushing. And because of that, it's not going to be perfect, and there'll be things that come in, but you'll continue to take them in and stress with them and wrestle with them. And God will be pleased and God's kingdom will grow. So well done and keep going.
Just on, not talk loud. Just on the question of subscription and not using tokens, I guess my question around that is, are you going to keep the idea of a single survey or single questionnaires open rather than a subscription model for those who might not have bought into the whole, let's call it subculture perhaps, or culture of NCD?
Yeah.
And then, are we going to have the energy translation as well?
It's a very good question, because it's not a brand new thing. You have to manage the change. So approximately speaking, and even if people have tokens on their account already, they would get transitioned. So a token would now equal like a month of subscription, which means it's about the same cost, but you just happen to get a whole lot more value even for the token. And hopefully you then say, well, I'd like to continue on with something. Yeah.
There's a big silence when you introduced that in the room of us. I think, don't take it wrong. I really want to express that it's because it's mind-blowing to many of us, certainly, that you guys went into such creativity, such development. I mean, how many people are behind that working with you toward the practical realization of such a project? It's mind-blowing, absolutely baffled. Congratulations.
Yes, it has blown our minds.
I've been working with Adam for a lot of years, and he's a guy who brings stuff to market when it's not ready. And it's because he wants feedback, and he wants to try it out, and he wants us to give him feedback and try it and use it and so on. So if you ever look at any of this and you think it's not ready yet, it isn't, right?
It's funny, in the early days of NCD, we had people accuse us sometimes of, it looks like you're building the ship as you're sailing. And it's like, well, yes. But then over time, it's like, well, there's actually no other imaginable way to do this. And I've embraced the fact that we have the word development in the name. So if natural church development is not developing over time, then we just give it up, and walk away.
Hvad med os, der ikke snakker engelsk? I'll translate it for you. What about those of us who don't have English as a first language?
Yes. We want to move heavily into the translation side of things. In fact, what we want to try to prioritize is that before we add other tests or other components to this, we want to translate this part, the first phase of the wholeness part, as thoroughly as possible. It's a hard decision, because you do that, and then, yes, but people in that speak Swahili, now they don't have the next tool to go on that direction, but it's always a chicken and egg scenario. But we want to make this as widely available as possible so that we generate as much energy and momentum, or capture as much energy and momentum as possible before moving into the other components. I mean, it's a very long, expensive process, but at the same time, we need the energy and we need to, drive forward.
And will the NCD.live still be available and the tokens stay available, so they will be two parallel opportunities?
Yes, so they'll have to be married to each other, and gradually there'll be pieces of NCD Life that will come across to the app. The whole realm will be under the subscription system, so if you took an e-test that's still on NCD Life and not on the app yet, you would be doing that via the subscription system, when that's in place, which just simplifies it so people don't have to think about different spaces. But they'll need to, at certain points, yes, I click out of the app and I'm kind of invisibly now on the website, which has the other tests that I can take. It's a huge process for the transition across, and we just have to make that as seamless as possible. But everything that's still there will be available on the website until it's then migrated to the app.
I want to echo the thank you for pushing the envelope and moving us into the 21st century, not just technically, but also vision-wise and a sense of where we're going and sharing that so openly. So thank you on behalf of the group.